You can predict the day that you will die with surprising accuracy. Not perfectly, but far more accurately than most people realize. Just with a few simple tests that you can do at home that measure a handful of vital biological signals. Signals that tell you whether your body's aging slowly or whether it's quietly deteriorating beneath the surface. Now, here's the part that most people never realize. Those signals often change decades before disease appears, which means they can tell you the direction your future is heading. And that's long before symptoms arrive. And if you can read those signals, well, you can reverse them too. If you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Zib. I'm currently studying a PhD researching longevity pathways. I've got a master's in molecular medicine and I help people regain their energy, optimize their health, and extend their longevity through a research-backed approach. Now, what I'm going to show you today are the 8 strongest predictors of how long you will live based on real human research. Now, I'm not even going to talk about smoking here because I'm sure you already know that smoking is one of the biggest killers. But instead, I'm going to focus on some of the signals that people tend to ignore, but ones that have the power to add years to your life or take them away. Now, the first one has been linked with nearly 5 years of extra life. When researchers followed participants in the Framingham Heart Study, they found something absolutely extraordinary. People with the highest omega-3 blood levels live nearly 5 years longer than those with the lowest levels. 5 years, not months, but years. And the researchers made a comparison that still surprises me. They found that having low levels of omega-3 shortened lifespan by about the same amount as smoking does. Literally, in the study, smokers with good omega-3 levels had an equivalent lifespan to non-smokers with low omega-3 levels. It's crazy, right? So, how can one nutrient have such a profound effect? Well, because omega-3 becomes part of your cell membranes, including your brain and your heart, and even your mitochondria. Your mitochondria are the structures inside your cells that generate all of the energy that we need for life. When your mitochondrial function declines, aging accelerates. But omega-3 helps stabilize those mitochondrial membranes, and this improves energy production. And your body uses those omega-3s to produce something called pro-resolving mediators. These quench inflammation, and that protects us against cardiovascular disease, which still remains the leading cause of death worldwide. Not only that, but omega-3s also reduce the risk of fatal arrhythmias, which is one of the most common causes of sudden death. Big effects, right? And further to that, they also appear to protect against Alzheimer's too, which isn't surprising considering they make up a huge percentage of the grey matter in your brain. Now, here's how to test this at home. You can order a simple blood test called an omega-3 index. They're cheap. You can find them online. This measures the percentage of EPA and DHA in your red blood cells. And an optimal range for longevity begins above 8%. Unfortunately, most people, they're below 4%, which places them in the highest risk categories. And if you want to improve this, you need to eat more oily fish. Things like sardines, mackerel, herrings, anchovies, salmon, or some algal oil if you are vegan or vegetarian. Now, specifically, the research shows that consuming about 2,000 milligrams a day of EPA and DHA, that will get you to that 8% mark in just 4 months. Now, to give you an example, something like 100 grams of mackerel a day, maybe 150 grams of salmon. But the biggest mistake that people make is eating large amounts of highly processed omega-6 oils like sunflower oil or in their processed foods, because this creates an inflammatory imbalance, potentially cancelling out some of the benefits of the omega-3, because both omega-3 and 6, they compete for the same enzymes for insertion in your cellular membranes. But omega-3 is just one part of the picture, because there's another predictor that can influence whether you live for nearly a decade longer. And it's directly linked to how efficiently your body produces energy. Cardiorespiratory fitness is one of the most strongest predictors of longevity we have ever discovered. And it's usually measured by your VO2 max, which is the maximum rate of oxygen your body can take in, transport, and use during intense exercise. Now, in large human studies, people with the highest cardiorespiratory fitness lived approximately 7 to 8 years longer than those with the lowest levels. It's not just correlation either, because there's a really strong dose response. Every small increment in cardiometabolic fitness moves the needle in a really meaningful way, which reflects fundamental biology underlying cardiorespiratory fitness, because it determines how efficiently your body is delivering oxygen to your mitochondria, to all the cells in your body. They need that oxygen to produce the energy that your cells need. Without that energy, your cells start to deteriorate. So when mitochondrial function declines, we see increased inflammation, increased insulin resistance, and an increased risk of chronic disease. Now, cardiorespiratory fitness also reduces risk of cardiovascular disease, as you may expect from the name, but also cancer and all-cause mortality. It really is such a powerful metric. Now, here's how you can test this one at home. A really simple proxy is just your resting heart rate, because a lower resting heart rate generally reflects better cardiorespiratory fitness. But you can also estimate your VO2 max using most wearable devices. But to be most precise, you need to do it in a lab. Or you can do what's called the Rockport 1 mile walking test to give you a pretty decent estimation. And if you want to improve it, here's what you need to do. Zone 2 cardio is one of the most effective methods. Now, this means exercising at an intensity where you can still hold a conversation. This stimulates your mitochondrial growth and it builds the base of your fitness. But you would be pretty out of breath just to dial it up a second more. So it's just that threshold of becoming out of breath. Half an hour every day is very effective. And if you combine this with 20 minutes of high intensity interval training a couple of times a week, that's what you need to help build the peak of your VO2 max. Now, the biggest mistake I see in this area is people only focusing on resistance or strength training while neglecting aerobic fitness or that high intensity training. But strength itself is another major predictor of longevity, and it may predict your survival even better than blood pressure. Now, strength usually gets measured by grip strength. It's one of the simplest tests you can perform easily, but it's also one of the most powerful. In the PURE study, researchers followed over 140,000 people, and they found that for every 5 kilogram decrease in grip strength, mortality risk increased by 16%. Now, that grip strength also predicted cardiovascular death and stroke risk too. This is because muscle plays such a critical role in metabolic health. Firstly, it acts as a reservoir for blood glucose. It literally sucks that all in. It improves insulin sensitivity and it reduces inflammation. Loss of muscle accelerates your biological aging. Having less muscle increases your risk of frailty and falls, which has a massive impact on your longevity. There's a huge risk factor for people's early death if they enter hospital after suffering from a fall. Now, here's how you want to test this one at home. You could go super precise and use a grip dynamometer, or you can just perform a simple dead hang off a bar or anything that you can hang from. If you can't hang for at least 30 seconds as a man or 20 seconds as a woman, that suggests an increased risk. And the protocol that improves this is resistance training, strength training, lifting heavy stuff. Relatively speaking, for your capacity, farmers carries, pull-ups, deadlifts, dead hangs. The biggest mistake here is not doing any of that strength training and being inactive. But there is a blood marker that more than doubles your risk of death. Most people, they've never even heard of it, because there's something that's silently accelerating aging in millions of people. Unfortunately, most of them have absolutely no idea that it's happening. It's called chronic inflammation. And one of the simplest ways to measure it is with a blood test called HSCRP. This is called high sensitivity test for C-reactive protein. Now, CRP is something that's produced in your liver in response to inflammation. It's a part of your immune reaction. In the short term, that inflammation is highly protective, but when it becomes chronic, it accelerates aging. Now, in a large meta-analysis, people with the highest CRP levels had more than a double the risk of death when compared to those with the lowest levels. Unfortunately, it doesn't just stop there, because in one of the most famous cardiovascular studies ever conducted, people with elevated CRP had nearly a 3 times higher risk of heart attack. Now, this is because inflammation damages your blood vessels, it damages your mitochondria, damages your DNA, and over time, all of that damage starts to add up. This process is called inflammaging, inflammation-driven aging. Now, here's how you can test this. You can get a simple at-home blood test called high sensitivity CRP. It's easily done just with a finger prick at home. The optimal longevity range is below 1 milligram per litre. Above 3 milligrams per litre is considered a high risk, and between 1 and 3 is a moderate risk. Now, here are some of the things that move that marker. Firstly, you've got exercise. Both regular aerobic exercise and resistance or strength training can reduce it by up to 41%. An anti-inflammatory diet, for example, the Mediterranean diet has been shown to be particularly effective. This can reduce CRP by 20% in just weeks. And reducing visceral fat is very important. That's that highly inflammatory fat that builds up around your organs. But the biggest mistake that a lot of people are making, unintentionally often, is living in a constant state of stress. Unfortunately, this often combines with poor metabolic health. But inflammation doesn't act alone, because there's another blood marker that reflects how much damage sugar is causing inside of your body. This one, unfortunately, can shorten your lifespan by years, and it measures a process called glycation. Glycation is actually one of the most important aging mechanisms. Probably heard of the HbA1c test, right? Well, that HbA1c measures the percentage of your hemoglobin in your blood that has sugar attached to it. The higher the percentage on your HbA1c means the more sugar damage your body has accumulated. Unfortunately, that damage accelerates aging. Now, to give you an idea of the magnitude of this, people with diabetes live approximately 6 years less than those without diabetes. 6 whole years due to that uncontrolled blood sugar and the glycation that occurs with it. This is because excess blood glucose damages your blood vessels, it damages your mitochondria, it damages your brain. It increases your risk of cardiovascular disease, dementia, even stroke. Every single increase in HbA1c is associated with a significantly higher mortality risk. Now, here's how to test this one. I've alluded to it earlier. Again, it's a simple finger prick blood test. The optimal longevity range is below 5.3%. Pre-diabetes is defined as above 5.7, but you really want to try and keep it below that 5.3. Now, the protocol to improve this marker focuses on improving your insulin sensitivity. Resistance training is a big one, because the more muscle you build, bigger sink you have for your blood sugar. Walking after meals, that transports your blood glucose directly into your muscles without the need of insulin, and obviously reducing refined carbohydrates. But the biggest mistake I see in this area is people snacking all throughout the day, because this keeps insulin persistently elevated throughout the day, preventing metabolic recovery. But your metabolism is just one part of the story, because your nervous system also determines how fast you are aging. And there's one signal, and this reflects whether your body is in repair or survival mode. See, your nervous system has 2 primary modes. First one is the sympathetic mode. You might have heard of fight or flight. But the second is your parasympathetic mode. which is often called your rest and digest. Now, your longevity depends heavily on your ability to enter that parasympathetic mode. One of the best ways to measure this is through heart rate variability. You might have heard of HRV. Now, HRV measures the variation in time between your heartbeats. A higher HRV reflects a stronger parasympathetic activity, better recovery, better stress resilience, whilst a lower HRV predicts an increased mortality risk. Centenarians, these are people that have lived beyond the age of 100. They tend to have a far superior parasympathetic nervous system function. Now, this is because parasympathetic activation, it suppresses inflammation, linking back to what we spoke about earlier on. This improves your mitochondrial efficiency, it protects your heart, and it promotes effective cellular repair. Now, here's how to measure this one. Most devices track your HRV. Oura Ring, Whoop Band, Garmin, Apple Watch, even standard fitness trackers. Have a look on yours if you've got one and see what it measures. The higher the number, the better. But track yours over time and see those improvements. Because here's how you can do that. Breathing exercises, slow diaphragmatic belly breathing, better quality deep sleep, and aerobic exercise is a really big one for improving your HRV. But one that a lot of people miss with surprisingly strong benefits is time spent in nature. Now, the biggest mistake in this area is again chronic stress, because this keeps your nervous system in that fight or flight mode, unable to activate the parasympathetic. Now, you've got to find out within this which stress management practices work best for you, and then avoid the stresses wherever possible. But the final predictor might be the most surprising of all, because it's not metabolic, it's not physical, it's not social, and it can increase your mortality risk by 50%. Loneliness is one of the strongest predictors of early death ever identified. In a meta-analysis of over 300,000 participants, loneliness increased mortality risk by up to 50%. Now, to give you an idea, that magnitude is comparable to smoking. Loneliness also increases risk of stroke by 56%. This is likely because loneliness activates stress pathways. It increases cortisol, increases inflammation, and all of those things act together to accelerate biological age. I think this is because we evolved in social groups. Now, isolation, that signals danger to our nervous system, whereas touch and connection signals for safety. Now, here's how to measure this one. It's a simple question. Do you have meaningful social connection? Because quality matters more than quantity, and your perception of it is absolutely vital. The issue is really whether you feel lonely or not. And if you do, try and put yourself out there for some regular social interaction. Find a community that you align with, build your purpose. The biggest mistake in this area that I think people are making in our modern times is to prioritize productivity over connection. And just remember, guys, your lifespan is not determined by luck. It's determined by your biology. And your biology responds to signals. Some of them we've spoken about today. Fitness, strength, inflammation, metabolic health, nervous system regulation, and connection. These signals determine how fast you age. And the most powerful part is this. You have the power to change them. You can change your trajectory. It's within your reach. Because aging isn't fixed, it's responsive. And if you want to go deeper into this, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more research-backed longevity tips.